If I have to leave. Hey, we're live. Hey. So right now, it's Let's Gang Up on Mike Hour. As I bring you myself, who, of course, is a my 4 teams, I've always said. My 2 Eastern teams are Philadelphia and Montreal. My Western teams are
teams.
I have 4 teams like that I follow. That's as a fan over the course of my life in different periods of time. Montreal was really early when I was young, and then still follow them now. So Montreal, Philly, and in the West, San Jose, Nashville. So
yeah, I'm a fan of 12.5% of the league.
Sure. But we had to have Karina tonight. Today's, what a frigging day we have. Let's just start the show, and then Russ is going to join us in a second. But instead of doing a pre-show, I want to jump right into hockey here, because while we don't have anybody else to defend or to go at Montreal, Karina and I are going to put Mike in his place. Here we go. Oh, Hockey World! It is Thursday, August 6th, 2020.
I'm Michael Agello, and how was that Mika Koskinen?
Wow. Green, you can introduce yourself too. Why don't you do that?
And I'm Karina. I blog for HockeyBuzz on the Montreal Canadiens, and I'm surprised that they're leading their series 2-1 right now.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday in the afternoon to fill you in the comings and goings in the hockey world. And today I'm wearing a see if anyone can guess in the chat room what this is. And before I tell you what it is, and just I'll talk about it when someone does. But this jersey, give you a better look here. This is the old. We did talk about this the other day. So if you're on the, I guess you might have. I did. I think show this logo, but this is one of my most obscure jerseys I have. I only have it for one reason.
It's an upside down Canucks jersey.
It is kind of an upside down Canucks jersey. When I was a kid, we had this on. We made this on T-shirts, and this was my street hockey's team logo as a kid. All right, so but no one. This will be interesting if no one gets this. It'll prove either you weren't paying attention the other day when I clear out showed it, or that you just don't care. One or the other. All right, here we go. Let's get into this. We have it's the magic number 12 to talk about today, because the number 12 now we have 2 number 12s beating 2 number 5s 2-1.
Which if you follow the NCAA tournament, the basketball tournament, that's basically the round of death. The 12 always upsets the 5.
Right. Yes, that's true. That's interesting. That's an interesting point. And in our case, in this case, the 5s were 2 pretty highly touted teams with the 2 best stars in the NHL on them. In Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid. These are the 2, I think, best players in the league.
You know how you can tell that these teams were held in higher regard, at least in the Eastern Conference, in the Eastern Hub. The 5 teams that were ensconced at Hotel X, which is the more modern, the more trendy hotel.
It's actually owned by me, by the way, Hotel X.
Yeah, I'm sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Were the 4 teams: Boston, Tampa, Washington, Philadelphia, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. So the rest of the schlubs are at the Royal York. So obviously with Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, and they thought, okay, we're going to put them at the highfalutin hotel when all the other scrubs, the 7 other teams, they can go.
Did they really do that? I did not know.
Yeah, Pittsburgh is at Hotel X.
Well, X Hotel is a good hotel, but I'm not surprised that's. I did not know they did that. Wow.
Yeah. Yep. Interesting. But that being said, they're not playing like one of those top 4 teams because they're losing to a much less talented club.
Oh yeah. And there's so much to get into, Kareem, with Montreal. But give me your feelings on this series, just your overall thoughts on this, and why it's going like this, and how do you think it can? Do you think they can finish it out? I guess is the other question too.
Well, I think my overall feelings is that the first 2 games, Carey Price completely stood on his head, and he had to for them to be in this one. But yesterday was much more of a team effort.
Yes.
From them, whilst Pittsburgh was the opposite. It's not so much that they're beating Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh is actually beating itself as well right now, because you've got Matt Murray in net it's just not doing the job. And you're just starting to think, at what point is Mike Sullivan going to say, okay, this is enough, I'm putting Jarry in, because he did it replacing Fleury by Murray in one playoff run, and now it would be time to do the same. Yeah. And their third pairing as well with Johnson and Schultz is really hurting them. Ours is a liability, but so is theirs.
Yeah.
So is it going to carry on?
Schultz is a UFA coming up too, by the way, and he's definitely not helping himself right now.
I mean, the question as to if it's going to carry on like that, it depends as much of the Montreal Canadiens as it does of the Pittsburgh Penguins, really, because if they wake up and they play like they can play, then there's no way that Montreal can finish this off, especially not on Friday when it's going to be Crosby's birthday. It's not just going to be like, I'm going to take the night off. It's my birthday. Yeah,
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, it is.
Well,
wouldn't that be crazy?
Let me say this, because I thought the only way that Montreal would win a game in this series was if Carey Price stood in his head, and he did that in Game 1.
Yeah.
And they won that game in overtime, like I made the point at. He was superhuman, and they still had to go to overtime to win.
Yeah.
And in Game 2, I thought Pittsburgh sort of the cream rose to the top, and they won that game.
Barely, Mike. I mean, they won by 1 goal. I mean, they won by 2 goals with an open net goal, but they still only won by 1 goal.
Yeah, but it was. I mean, territorially, it was. I think it was more of a one-sided game.
They dominated in the second. Yeah.
Price played well, but I didn't think the team played well in front of him. Yesterday, I put this all on Pittsburgh because they're up 3-1, and I'm not taking anything away from Montreal. They put a lot of effort into it, but this was not Carey Price stealing the game. This was Pittsburgh up 2 goals and saying, we got this. And I think mentally they checked out. And I don't think it was Matt Murray playing badly. Jeff Petrie's game-winning goal, where he shot from the goal line off of his head under the crossbar. Try that 50 times. I think he gets it once. So, I mean, now, does Pittsburgh have to, raise their compete level here? Yeah, because, I mean, I think if the compete levels are equal and it's basically an evaluation of talent, I think Pittsburgh wins this series. That's why everybody, except very few, picked Pittsburgh to beat Montreal. But right now, Montreal is not the more talented team, but they're outworking the Penguins. And if they do that, they could win.
They are outworking, but the other thing to notice about yesterday was the fact that Claude Julien took advantage of the last change. He really got the matchups he wanted, and for once, he actually trusted his youth. He moved up Suzuki to the first line. It had been a long while since Philip Danault was not on the first line. He moved up Kotkaniemi to the second, and Danault was finally on the third, where he should be. So that was nice to see Julien actually trusting the youth. That was just like, oh my God, what's happening here? I
know. I mean, there cannot be a better experience for a young team than what the Canadiens are going through now, win or lose. I mean, to be honest, this is just, I mean, what the reality of living together. I mean, this is the greatest company-wide team building experiment of all time. Somebody told me this the other day. It's a GM who's in there, as this assistant GM actually, who's in the bubble, said this is by far, like, how companies have the team building retreats that they'll send you to or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's what this is basically. This is like a team building retreat that just and it's the greatest of all time for sports. And to the bond that these players already have a great bond, but the bond that they get in this situation, and the bond that a team like Montreal that was still learning its identity, a lot of young players, what are they all about? What they're getting out of this, I mean, that's just more worth it than words can say. And even if they don't win the series, and I still don't think they're going to win the series. I've been clear about that, like from the beginning. I said you could bet your house they were going to win Game 1. But I didn't think at all, even though I have a bet with Mike that I'm on the series because I want them to win. So the fan in me bets. The fan in me is betting them to win. But the logical person is that Pittsburgh, they can. But the reality is this: Pittsburgh, last night they got their power play going, and when it was for the loss they had, they got their power play going, which is a factor because that to me that changes the way the game is played a little bit. If Montreal has to worry about Pittsburgh's power play going because what happens here, with a team that's better and just more talented, the Canadiens, have to now worry about taking penalties. If the guy gets by them, if I pull them down, they're going to score on me. That power play needs to be a proactive weapon for the Penguins, and it wasn't when they're 0 for 8. Because when the Penguins are bad on the power play, they are historically bad. This is how this group's always been. When they're bad, that affects their entire game. And this team never. I would love to do a stat on how many games the Penguins have won when they've gone like 0 for 4 on the power play or more. They just don't. They for some reason when they miss their power plays. So that to me was a good sign for the Penguins last night. But that was the only good sign they got. And the other good sign for the Penguins is they have a guy named Tristan Jarry who's sitting there, right? And he is a hell of a goalie. And Matt Murray, they've given him all the chances they owe him, in my opinion, right now. If the Penguins don't go to Jarry now, there's no point. in
They
having.
need to shake things up, and he was the better goalie this season as well. So
Better goalie this season. He looked better in the practice game they had in the beginning of the year against the Flyers.
Yeah.
At the beginning of this whole thing. So yeah, they got to go to. And that is going to be a lift for the Penguins. That is going to help them. And there's still a confident group there. But man, so that's why I say that the Canadiens have already won. If they, in my opinion, they've already
for the experience they got out of it and everything.
And you know me, I'm not one who's going to say like we need a chance at Lafreniere, but I don't think
in the long run, this team needs an infusion of talent more than it needs a short-lived playoff.
Right.
run.
So losing this series, and in my opinion, the best thing they could possibly do is lose this series in 4 overtimes in Game 5. That would be like if
That'd be great.
if they did that, that's the best thing that could probably happen for the Montreal Canadiens long term. Because what they've already won, I think, and that's impressive. I mean, there were times last night, and even in Game 2 when the Canadiens lost, I thought there were times when the Canadiens, had the Penguins on their heels, and it happened. It happened right before the Penguins scored actually the second goal. I think it was in Game 2, where the Canadiens were just pouring it on. And last night in the second period, man, the Canadiens were hitting posts and stuff like that before they scored that goal.
Yeah,
before they scored that goal to go up 4-3, the Canadiens, it was all Montreal. And and the reality is, I mean, what Price, the confidence Price gives a young team back there is just
it's a big lift. Yeah.
I mean, that's
but on top of that, when you're getting 2 goals and 2 assists out of Jeff Petrie and Shea Weber, the gods are on their side, because I'm not saying that because we know Weber, even though he has slowed down, he's still a very good defenseman. We know Petrie is a veteran guy, but you don't expect to get that kind of offensive production. Their big scores through 3 games have been Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and Thomas Tatar. It's like, so they're getting offense from, Petrie scores the goal to win it in Game 1. He scores the game winner in game 3 in Game 3. So it's like, they're getting contributions from places that they probably didn't think they were going to get.
Well, to be fair, Jeff Petrie's been a big offensive contributor in the last 2 seasons, especially when Weber was out injured.
Right.
Petrie would step up, but this year he kept it up even with Weber in the lineup. So I'm not that surprised that Petrie can win stuff for us.
He's really kind of surprised me in how well he's been for Montreal. I was not a big fan of him before he came to Montreal, and I wasn't really.
He came into his own in Montreal. So.
Yeah, I really wasn't a big fan of the signing in Montreal. I was like, oh, geez, this is I was going to. But no, he's definitely come into his own there. And
Jan, my assertion here is, and I'm not taking anything away from Montreal, but last night in particular, Pittsburgh spit the bit. They had that game 3-1. If they play as a good veteran, experienced team would, that game should be over with. And they really let down their guard and let Montreal back in the game. Montreal took advantage of the fact that they did that, and then Montreal wins. And Pittsburgh got nobody to blame but themselves. Jan.
Yeah, they definitely took their foot off the gas pedal is what it looked like. I know there saw some things, people questioning Mike Sullivan and for getting his team ready to play in terms of, playing around. You have to view it like the playoffs. You have a 3-1 lead against the team you should beat. Anytime you open the door and give them a crack to maybe consider, the longer you stay in a game, the more of a thought process you have that you could win it, even if you're outmanned and outgunned. And once it became 3-2, you can kind of see the trickle-down effect of that. Yeah. And Pittsburgh's inability to close it out, 3-3, and then clearly, obviously, Petrie with the game winner. Pittsburgh right now is in a whole heap of trouble right now, 2-1. You would think that talent-wise should be enough, but for some reason there just seemed to be something lacking, especially the second half of the game yesterday.
Yeah, I also think that Malkin still, he's taken a ton of shots, but has he taken a lot of good shots? He's taking a lot of shots. He made a hell of a pass yesterday on that one.
Yeah, but that's it. He's aware that the shots are not going in. So on that power play, he chose to do the pass cross ice, and that was the what led to the goal.
That pass was phenomenal. But if Malkin hasn't hit that other gear that we've seen with Malkin, and that to me he doesn't have that gear. Maybe it's the lack of fans. Maybe I don't know what it is, but it's not, that gear is not there yet. And to me that Malkin has to have that other gear, and he has and the defense for the Penguins just has to be better. I mean,
Well,
talking about. I mean, the big thing that I continually say is the big thing the Penguins have going for them is they've got another goalie who they can put in there who's really good and who could really turn this thing around, could help them turn this around.
A couple things. I found it laughable, and don't get me wrong. I don't think Chris Letang. I think Chris Letang is a very good defenseman, and it probably borderline Hall of Famer right now. But when Mike Milbury says, Chris Letang, what a great two-way defenseman. I almost choked on what I was eating. It's like Chris Letang is not a great two-way defenseman.
He shouldn't be a great two-way defenseman. That's not his game. His game's not.
But I'm saying Milbury's saying that.
I know.
What are you talking about?
Letang would take that as an insult. He's not a two-way defenseman. I mean,
right.
Russ, what were your thoughts on this game last night?
He's still rebooting, I think.
Oh,
I'm good.
Okay, Russ, what did you think of the game last night?
On Montreal.
I thought Montreal played physical. They played a good game. This wasn't a game Carey Price won for them. This was a game where Pittsburgh's defense was standing around, and they were standing around the entire third period. I don't understand what they were doing. People who want to blame Matt Murray, it's like, listen, Matt Murray was trying to do his best. That save that he made he didn't even know he made with his leg was just good goaltending because he's like a robot. And the fact that nobody was there to help out and clear that puck out was ridiculous. Now, one scored off his head's a freak goal. That's just a great goal. I don't even know if Jeff Petrie would ever score that ever again in his career. That's just one of those things.
It's throwing that.
Yeah, but I give Montreal great credit because they did block shots. They were blocking a lot of shots. The puck movement was good. I felt good for Drouin scoring. I still kind of wonder though how many of them want the first pick and how many of them want to win this series. But this series is going to go to 5. And Crosby knows that what his team did wrong, and he probably destroyed them after the game because on his post game, I've interviewed Crosby enough to know that he was like, yeah, I know what we did. Yeah, I know what we could do to fix this. And
that's his public persona is way different.
Oh yeah.
I talked to players in the room with him. He is not a happy. He's not a happy camper. I mean, he just completely. Now, the one thing I'll say about Murray though, and yes, that was a freakish goal that Petrie scores. But
yeah,
my mind flashed back because I just watched it the other day. They had the Winter Classic, the not the Winter Classic, but the outdoor stadium game between the Flyers and the Penguins on. Right. that version of when they had the mic'd up thing, which is a lot of fun to watch.
Oh yeah, and
that goal that the Flyers tied on is the same shot from the same angle. Remember that it was Voracek in the corner.
But it didn't hit his head the same way though.
The same way, but it was the same situation of not really being set for that play. Like that could be looked at as a.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
but
there's a bit of
if you're a goaltender, you're not going to set for a shot from the goal line that's going to go off your cranium.
No, you have to be. You have to be set for. And if the person can score from where they are, you have to be set for that. You do.
Now, this is where it's going to be interesting for Sullivan because if he decides, because I don't think Murray was at fault for the loss, but if he decides he's going to go to Jari for Game 4, to switch things up to maybe change a momentum or whatever, I don't think you can go back to Murray. I think you're either going to stick with Jari through the rest of this series. Or if you're eliminated, and then that raises a lot of questions about the offense, what they have to do because remember Murray's an RFA, so is Jari. I think Jari is I think Murray's arbitration eligible, whereas Jari's coming off his ELC. So they could probably re-sign Jari at around $3.5 million, whereas Murray with 2 Stanley Cups in his pocket in his resume, he's going to probably expect to get $6.5 to $7 million.
Wouldn't it be crazy ironic if Murray, if you have Fleury the goalie for the Vegas Knights and Murray's the goalie for the Seattle Kraken?
I mean, everything's possible, but
the problem is it's a year away. They have to make their decision now.
Oh, yeah, no, they have to, but still, I'm still just very curious whether or not.
As far as this series go, I would stay with Murray. I would not make a change.
I agree.
I don't know. I think you have to make a change. I do. I think
if only to shake things up, I think he has to make a change.
Yeah, I mean, you're one more loss and you're done. And a quick elimination is not acceptable for this Penguins team. I mean,
right. But if you go and you put in Jari and you get eliminated, you will get excoriated.
Right. Not as much as if you didn't go to him at all.
I don't know about that.
No, I really think at least that point, fans just want my opinion, fans with goalies want you to try. Like when people don't put another goalie in a situation like this, they just accuse them of not even trying. Like this.
Yeah.
No one's going to blame them for taking a shot.
Oh, you're talking about the Penguins and Crosby.
Accidentally, Mike. I apologize.
What the hell?
Hold on. I apologize. I don't know where that came from.
I don't think the head's big enough. I'm just.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
We cut to Matt Murray's locker.
I'm not quite sure why that popped up there. All right, let's move on.
That should be the screensaver for the show.
I know it should be in the back. It will be in the background. Believe me, at some point. All right, so quickly, someone in the chat did guess this. I'm wearing this jersey today. I just wanted to talk about this for a second because it is an obscure jersey. This is the New Jersey Devils jersey. This was
the Cherry Hill Devils.
Jersey Devils. They were an American hockey.
Yeah.
This is a little bit reading from Wikipedia, but just to give you, they were based in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, in what is now a Walmart, I believe.
It's a Walmart, yeah.
Yeah, they turned that building into a Walmart. They were formed when the Philadelphia Ramblers, who were in the EHL, relocated to Cherry Hill in 63-64. The Devils played there until 73, when they folded along with the whole EHL. But they had several notable players, that played on this team. And I'll tell you some of the notable players were so Bobby Taylor, who turned into who was a Flyers backup under Bernie Parent. Marcel Pelletier was a former NHL goalie. Let's see who else. Rosaire Paymont, who was definitely was related.
Paymont's older brother, who
played
in the WHA.
Larry Plow, who. Yep. Rookie of the year. In the I guess he was a Canadian, obviously. Larry Plow.
Also an NHL executive for a while.
Former Hartford general manager, I believe.
Yep. John Brophy, who's one of the classic old time snapshot type guys.
Yes, the man responsible for convincing Gord Stellick, hey, you should trade Russ Courtnall for John Kordic.
Is that who? Was he involved in that?
Yes, he was the coach of the Leafs at that point.
That is fantastic. His EHL penalty minutes are just the stuff of epic legend. Okay.
Yeah, for a long time they thought that John Brophy was the model for Reg Dunlop and Slapshot, but it was somebody else.
Yeah, no, John Brophy played 1,000 games roughly, say 980 games in the AHL, and had 3,800 penalty minutes.
And if you look at his face, it looked like he had 3,800 penalty minutes.
3,800 penalty minutes in an EHL, a league that wasn't even around long enough for anyone to be able to get 3,800 penalty minutes in. That's astonishing. So yeah, they played when I was a kid. I would go over there and watch them practice sometimes. And this was like I said before, this was my street hockey team's. My street hockey team made jerseys with this logo on it. Well, that were like T-shirts with this logo on it when I was a kid.
Well, okay, so
there you go. Moving on. Sorry.
Yeah.
I wanted to tell you one thing. I was at a USA Hockey Hall of Fame induction a couple years ago in Philly, and one of the inductees, I can't remember his name, talked about this team, talked about how crappy everything was, talked about how they had to change in a hotel before they went to the game. He didn't have the same fond memories you do because he actually had to coach the team.
Do you know the Cherry Hill area at all, Russ?
A little.
Okay, so do you know that hotel is now a place where you may have been to a wedding? If you grew up in South Jersey or you lived in South Jersey your whole life, you know the Hideaway?
Were you talking about the one that's that's off of 70 when you
it's like
part of 70? Yeah,
that's right. Do you know where Kaminsky's is, right?
Yeah.
All right, Kaminsky's is where I had my first date with my wife, and where actually when I was a kid, we would go to Kaminsky's because the Flyers would go there after games to drink. And even when they were coming in on West Coast trips, they would get in there. They would keep Kaminsky's open late when the Flyers had West Coast trips. So we always go to Kaminsky's. Kaminsky's was across the street from this arena. That's where this arena was. If you go across the street, there's a Kmart, Walmart. Yeah, that's where this arena was.
Yeah, this guy's name is Bill Belisle. He's in the USA Hockey Hall of Fame, and I forget exactly what he had to do with that team, but he was talking about it because we got him talking.
I wonder if he's any relation to Dan Belisle. But all right,
thanks, guys. I just wanted to get into that. Let's move on to the next other games yesterday that we can talk to. Let's start with the other 12 versus 5, because here's your familiarity with the Blackhawks scoring late goals and winning a game from defeat. This was very, very memorable, very familiar somehow to me from that game we saw them win a Stanley Cup in Boston. They just kind of shocking the Oilers. This game was really, man, the Blackhawks. I did not see this game coming from them. This really looked like this was, to me, I felt like Edmonton was going to make a statement last night, and they just didn't.
Well, I think what hurt Edmonton was the parade to the penalty box. They spent most of the first two periods playing shorthanded and successive shorthanded opportunities, unfortunately for them. And every time you turned around, there was another penalty being called, and a lot of them were just stupid penalties that they were taking for absolutely no reason at all. Reach penalties, holding penalties, interference penalties, just kept right. And again, they were fortunate that Chicago didn't capitalize on most of those power play opportunities. But if you look at the goal late in the period by Taves, that was just a weak goal that bounced off him, deflected. Yeah. Draisaitl had his leg slightly outside the post, and it slipped by him, and then it slipped by Koskinen. And then you thought, okay, that Chicago's in the driver's seat. And all of a sudden, Edmonton comes back and gets a second goal by Draisaitl and gets a goal by McDavid. It's 3-2, and you're thinking, okay, here we go.
That's it. That's
a goal by a guy you never think's going to score a goal, and then Taves on a very fluky goal late in the game.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden, just like in the other 5-12 matchup, we're looking at the 12 seed with a 2-1 lead in a game where in a series where we all thought that even if Crawford stood on his head, Edmonton might have had too much in order to beat them.
Here's a picture of if you can see that, a picture of or a description of what Mikko Koskinen is.
You can't blame Koskinen for all these, though.
No, but I'm
oh man, all right.
Here's what I would say with real criticism. I think it was the Taves goal actually went off Ethan Bear's skate.
Yes, it did.
And so that was one where, hey, it did go on their side, but they did play a good game.
I think they're going to correct.
Hold on, Mike.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Hold on. Edmonton was interesting because I felt like, and again, I went to sleep in the middle of the second period, so I went and watched everything else later on. When McDavid scored and Crawford was down and stayed down, I'm telling you, I think he is going to run out of gas. I think because they're asking him to do something. Right now, it's extraordinary what he's doing, considering he had COVID. He didn't have much practice. He's coming back and playing. Like, this guy is literally giving it his all.
Oh, yeah.
And I think after that goal, that was like tough for him, but he still stayed in the game and they won. This one probably goes 5-2, but give Chicago credit. They did come back.
I mean, I'm surprised because the broadcast had Connor Murphy with that goal because it did go off Bear's stick.
Yeah.
It didn't look like
I thought it was a skate. I don't know.
No, it was a stick.
Stick, okay.
But it I didn't see it hit Taves. But all that being said, this is following the blueprint that we've been talking about with the Oilers all season. Who got the 3 goals? Draisaitl, and McDavid. Where the hell is the rest of the team? They're not there.
Nugent Hopkins hasn't had a bad series.
No, but I'm saying in this particular game, Jan. I'm saying
and Yamamoto was having a great game.
Yamamoto's having a good game also.
He got hammered and he came back. Like, he was having a really good game. I know the scoring was the way it was. This game, I'm not going to blame Koskinen. I'm not blaming any goalie for this game. This is just one of those games, man.
They lost one. They lost one of their depth forwards and Tyler Ennis, and it did not look like an oh, by the way injury. It looked like he broke an ankle because he went along the boards. I think it was Kirby Dodge.
It was Dak.
Yeah, and it was not like a dirty play. It was just like, one leg hit the other, and then he went along the boards. But that's something that Edmonton can't afford because they don't have enough good forwards as it is, and their defense, although it played better under Tippett, and Tippett is a defensive coach. This is a fire wagon hockey series. This is I think it was you that mentioned a couple days ago that there was 2012 Flyers Penguins.
That was Anthony, yeah.
Or that was Anthony. That's what this is. It's like Katie bar the door, and it's like, honestly, you're paying into what Chicago actually wants to do, and Chicago did something right yesterday with McDavid. They tried to neutralize him before he got really going, and like in terms of speed, they didn't allow him to build up the speed at the opposing blue line. They tried to cut him off. They did an effective job for most of the game. If they keep doing that, I didn't think they had a chance to win this series. I think I picked the Oilers in 5. I still think the Oilers are going to win, but right now Chicago is doing a great job.
Yeah, but I think firewagon hockey doesn't help Chicago as much as it does Edmonton, because Edmonton should have more offensive firepower. I actually thought Kane had a pretty good game. I think Kirby Dack has been really impressive this series, building on what he showed in the second half before the pandemic. But look, you look at Chicago's defense, to me, it's still not the type of defense that I think is going to be able to bail them out. And as Russ said, if you keep peppering Crawford and making him work over and over again, sooner or later, unfortunately, based upon he's still getting his legs underneath him, he's going to crack eventually. The question is it going to come before the series ends or in the next series?
I'll tell you who I would bring in for Edmonton. I would bring in either Tyler Benson or Cooper Marody. Marody has played NHL games, and he actually was a Flyer once. He has a little bit of scoring in him, and he could be one of those guys that could surprise you. Benson, I think, has deserved a chance.
Yeah, I do too.
So either way, I think, you know what? I know it's tough with Innes out, but sometimes it's the young guys that could really help you out in this spot.
What are your thoughts on this one, Karine, this series?
It's been an entertaining one to watch for sure, but I really thought that Edmonton would take that one because, well, to me, Crawford is a good goalie, but yes, he's been sick and he's got an injury history as well with concussions and all that. And my feeling was that Crawford just couldn't withstand the Edmonton firepower.
Well, really interesting.
It looks like he's doing well so far.
Yeah, the interesting thing to me about this whole thing is, okay, both of these 5 versus 12 series play on back-to-back games on Friday and Saturday. 4 and 5. Games 4 and 5 are back-to-backs.
That's the breaks, man, you know.
That's the breaks, but that is also
But they don't have to travel.
There's no travel, but I think, Russ, that plays into how can Crawford be standing at the end of this type.
Yeah, that's going to be tough on Crawford. I agree with you on that.
Like game 5. If Chicago really needs to finish this out in game 4 in my mind.
They do.
If it does the 5, that's trouble. The other thing, and along those
You're right about that.
It's also going to be trouble for Edmonton if they keep doing what they did last night. They played Chris Russell, Nurse, Bear, and Clefbaum over 22. All of them over 22 minutes. They didn't have Larson. I don't think Larson's going to probably play in game 4. I'm not sure what the reason is why. But their bottom pairing of Caleb Jones and Benning played 9 minutes.
Well, they're young. They really are.
I know, but if you play your top 2 pairs 25 minutes a night, they're going to be spent.
What the shorthanded didn't help matters, right? Because you have to play certain blue liners when you're shorthanded all the time.
And the penalties.
By the way, one thing about that, because Jan brought up shorthanded, Dave Tippett played Connor McDavid on the penalty kill with 30 seconds to go. What are you doing?
I didn't get that either.
It's just like he doesn't have his best players on the ice. Put him or Draisaitl on that penalty kill. Rotate him if you want. Make sure somebody's out there with 30 seconds to go so you could possibly get a shorthanded goal. Wayne Gretzky used to play that, and Wayne Gretzky couldn't play defense to save his life, but that's why he was out there for offense. Yeah, I don't know what Tippett's doing with that.
Draisaitl led their team with time on ice with 24 minutes, and surprisingly for Chicago, it was Doc. Doc had 23 minutes.
Doc was great yesterday.
Yeah,
he was.
There's a lot of people I know saying, has he moved into the Hughes and Kakko status based upon the way that he's played? So
listen, he's a 6'4" kid, right? And so I think it's easy to say, hey, look, this guy, because he's got power in his game, has moved ahead of the other two. The other two are still developing. He's still developing. I wouldn't say it yet.
But the talk is out there a little bit. Just seeing the way he's played a little bit.
The talk was out there after year 1 in Michigan that Quinn Hughes wasn't worthy of anything. And where is he now?
Yeah, I mean,
making Detroit look bad.
Here's the thing there's 2 things that I've noticed, and these are both overall macro. First of all, are they going to? The penalties are all being obviously we're getting a lot of penalties called, way more than normally for the playoffs. But we're not in the playoffs yet. Someone pointed this out to me the other day when I talked to them. They said, "Are we going to see the playoffs bring a little bit different, than where we are now? Even though these are play-in games, we're not technically in the playoffs. Are we seeing the referees needed this time to set, to we're still boss type thing, but then are we going to see them ease off when we get to the playoff round? I think that's going to be fun to watch. And the other thing along these lines what's astonishing is we've only had 1 overtime game, and we haven't had anything go. And the 1 overtime game, which of course was Pittsburgh and Montreal, it went pretty long. It went like 12 minutes, I think, didn't it?
Well, the fact that you're saying that we've only had 1 overtime game, you're talking about the play-in round and not the round robins, because then again, that's reflective of the fact that the round robins aren't
right.
playoff games.
I mean, I was excited when they announced the best of 5 that these were going to be like full NHL playoff overtimes, right? We haven't.
Yeah, those are. The others aren't, and that's why I
Right.
turned it off, because I didn't want to see a shootout in an actual playoff game. I didn't want to see it.
I mean, but are we going to? I mean, at some point, like one of these days, we're going to have like a double overtime game or something's going to. I mean, you think, or are we getting? Or are all the penalties being called going to keep any? Because
I don't know if we are going to see that. I don't know if it's the penalties either. I think we used to see it because of guys being so tired and lethargy and everything else, and we're not seeing that out of guys right now because they really are fresh because
they're all rested.
They had months off, and so
maybe that is it.
I don't think we're going to see a lot of them.
Well, I mean, to that theory, Ak, it's like, and Kurt and I, like in game 1, when they had the 2 penalty shots, I didn't think either one of those calls were worthy of penalty shots.
I hate penalty shots.
No, that's true.
That's
true, and it would have been a shame if one of them scored, really, because they weren't deserved penalty shots.
Yeah. I mean, I hate the way penalty shots are called now. It's ridiculous. There was one, and I think it was I'm not sure if it was the Predators game. Let's get to that. There was one that they said that could easily be a penalty shot, and then there absolutely could have easily been a penalty shot. There was no question about it.
I don't have a record for the last, let's say, 10 penalty shots, but it does seem like the goalies have probably a 75% advantage at this point on them.
Yeah, they're so used to facing shootouts.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Right. I mean,
it used to be worse because you're right. They didn't have a shootout to practice in all the time. That's a good point.
Now, so in the topsy-turvy series between Arizona and Nashville, game 3 goes Arizona 4-1. Dvorak, Garland,
crazy series.
So it is a crazy series.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no consistency in this series. I mean, whatever magic that Nashville had in game 2 just completely evaporated. I thought Arizona outplayed them in this game.
They did, and what's the weird thing about this is, I'm going to actually say the opposite, because when you look at the like the Nashville dominated that game, and in game 3. Just like Arizona dominated game 2. What you're seeing are whoever dominates the shot total loses in these games. And I think what's interesting about that
shots on goal don't matter.
And these are 2 teams that actually are at their best playing counter hockey. Like countering the other teams. Mm-hmm. So when someone takes a 2 when they're it's kind of better. Both these teams should be playing more boring. But the Preds, yesterday it's 1-1. Both teams, the Preds decided they were going to go for it and try to take stranglehold in the series, and it backfired on them because, what happens is both these goalies too, and I am starting to have some serious questions about Saros after that game yesterday too. I want to get into that.
Yeah, actually, both of them. I think I don't think Saros. I mean, Kempner, had a better game, but I don't think he looks totally comfortable. I don't get crazy about the shot total because a lot of times teams, when they're struggling, they just throw pucks to the net and hope. And
it's not about
shots.
Yeah, but
it's
it was
not about how many shots you take; it's the quality of the shots that matters.
But if you watch the beginning of that, the beginning of that game. The Predators were all over them. I mean, the shots were 11-1, 10 minutes into the game.
Yeah, I remember that. I watched it early.
And the day before that, it was the same thing. With Arizona having, they outshot them 9-2, and the Preds had a goal in one of their 2 shots.
It was one of the most unimpressive 40-shot offensive performances I've ever seen.
You don't watch Montreal enough, clearly, because they always get lots of shots, but they all throw them in the chest of the goal.
I was going to say, the Ron Wilson Maple Leafs used to have 50 shots and wouldn't score a goal. So, yeah.
He's already taken his quota of shots at Montreal for Eden.
I'd like to say this is amazing coaching, Eck, and this is just a great chess game, and the other coach has the other team up, and I just think these 2 teams can't put 2 good games together.
I think you're right.
I think that's what it is.
And the question now has to be asked about Saros in game 4 to me. And I think you got to go to Pekka Rinne.
I would go to Rinne because at this point they need some consistency. If he's got anything left, he will show it in this game.
Right. He's the one who has he has another level. He is the experienced guy in the playoffs.
And if they don't go to Rinne, then that's proof that Rinne is done.
Completely done. And I think and I'm a Saros guy, and I don't think it's a shot at Saros. No, they don't have to say it's a shot at Saros. They can say, hey, that we're just trying to change the momentum or whatever. Because Saros is going to be their guy probably in the future. But if Saros goes down again with another bad game, that could affect it. I think this is the perfect opportunity to put Rinne in there and give Saros the chance to.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would do it.
And I really hope they do it. And also Rinne, you can't underestimate the, what he should be wearing a letter on his sleeve. He's a captain of that team. And so beyond just a goalie, he is This is like bringing a Luongo back in or bringing a Fleury.
Yeah, but they wouldn't do it with a new coach. That's the problem.
Yeah,
the new coach only knows him for a few months.
Yeah, and I don't think they would do it anyway. But they never did it. But when you're around that team, Rene is not. He's a captain. He's a captain every which way, and also not like a typical goalie that we've talked about this before. He'll talk to you before a game. He doesn't have superstitions. He's weird that way, and he's just like he's a player who actually is 100% on that.
I'd like to see him in goal really, because if the Predators go out like the Rangers did with the experienced guy on the bench, we're gonna get another shot of a goalie having his arm broken.
Sad shot.
That Lundqvist moment the other day was just too hard to stomach. I don't want to see that.
That was really rough. Well, I agree with you 100%. That was really rough. But besides that, I mean, Taylor Hall is playing very well. Obviously, now that I'm into the rumor.
Yeah, Hall definitely had a nice game.
We'll be talking more about the rumor chart in a lot of shows as we move forward here. There are just so many games to talk about right now. But the rumor chart, Hall is helping himself out. He had to. I mean, he had to do something. I figured he would have to come up big, and he is. And Phil Kessel is also coming up big for Phil Kessel. That needs to be said. He looks pretty good out there. He's making some nice plays.
He's engaged, so I give him that.
Yeah, he's very engaged. And Garland yesterday was really
Garland has those games. I mean, he plays hard every game. It's just he doesn't always get on the score sheet, but he had a great game. He
must be
placing just disturbing the Predators every which way.
They must be promising Phil Kessel his favorite post-game meal.
Knew this was coming. It was only a matter of time. Thank you.
I didn't say it.
Thank you for keeping with the mantra.
I didn't say anything.
You didn't have to.
I didn't say anything about Frankfurt. Okay, the other afternoon game. Russ, you and I both thought that the Islanders would finish off the Panthers.
We did.
Quenneville shook up his lineup because I think he had no choice. Yeah. I was surprised on a couple of their power plays that they had Brian Boyle standing in front of the net. And I know he's big, but there's nobody with like worse. He's got some of the worst hands in the league. So
he did get a goal.
He did get a goal. He got the game-winning goal, so I can't take it away from him. But does this mean that the Panthers are back in the series? I don't know. I mean, but they did look much better.
More than I thought.
Was this the game they had a 5-on-3 and Bavolia hit a post? I don't remember.
Yeah.
But they, that was something that I felt probably took a little bit of steam out of the Islanders. Florida played good. I think the Islanders played good too. I don't think this was a game where I could say the Islanders played poorly and that's why they lost. I think Florida just finally, played up to a level where they could beat them, and we'll see if they can do it again next game. At least nobody's complaining about Bob. Gave him a deal.
Varlamov's trapezoid penalty was a killer.
Yes,
that completely changed all the momentum of that game. I mean, Bobrovsky was good. He was actually good throughout. I mean, not really bobbles that we've seen in the past, but that penalty just changed momentum completely in that game.
And just do away with the trapezoid. I can't tell you one goalie that I've interviewed that likes it, that is not playing the game like Boucher. I've interviewed like 3 or 4. They all hate it.
It's crazy because the trapezoid is, as we've mentioned before, was part of a compromise.
Yes,
involving Ed Snyder and the NHL. At the time during the lockout, Ed Snyder did not want to go along with the whole lockout thing at all when they missed the whole year. He didn't need to. His team, for him, is purposeless. So to get Ed Snyder to agree to everything and get guys in Boston and in Chicago to agree with these things, this was basically the anti-Marty Brodeur rule that we don't want Marty Brodeur to be able to come out, but the purpose of it is actually serves the opposite to me of what it should be. Like if you think that this creates more offense because the goalies aren't going to go into the corner and get the puck, name me a time when it wasn't exciting when a goalie went into the corner to get a puck.
And he wasn't even in the corner. He was on the edge of the trapezoid.
Right, even Marty Brodeur would go if the goalie's out that far. That's an offensive opportunity to me. I don't.
And if he messes it up, then the other team can take advantage of it. So he actually takes scoring chances away.
I mean, the only thing I'm with the trapezoid, and I brought this up at the time, and I'm like, to me, the trapezoid should have been the because remember the old realm was, because I was a goalie, you can't hit the goalie in the crease, right? Yeah. That was the old rule, but then that became you really can't hit the goalie anywhere. But to me, make the trapezoid the area where you can't hit a goalie, but allow the goalie to handle the puck anywhere. If you want that, to me, that was like, if you want to protect goalies but to me, I love goalies coming out. I love goalies handling the puck. Why is it a trapezoid just behind the net then? Why, can goalies still come out really far and handle the puck in front of the goal line? It's such a ridiculous, stupid rule.
I did want to say, offensive wise, there was a nice change there with Boychuk being out and Andy Green in. Andy Green made a great stretch pass. I forgot who he broke free and had a one-on-one situation saved, but it was a kind of a lousy shot. Boychuk can't do that. So I think having Andy Green in there might actually serve them better, to be honest.
And can we just emphasize, and they really had no option in this instance, but these round robin games are useless. They really are.
They're boring.
They are for the Bruins, and we pointed that out, that they were not going to care one iota about these games, and they are playing like they don't care one iota about these games. And don't listen to Cassidy in the post game, because he's not being honest and truthful about what he's seeing, because he knows what they're not going to do in these games. He knows that they have nobody injured. They don't care where they're seated. They have no injuries. That's what the Bruins, that's what their game plan was. You look at the Flyers. Yes, they play hard. They may get a higher seed. They lost Raffle. You look at other teams, they've got injuries. The Bruins don't.
Yeah, I think the only team of the 8 that should be worried right now is Dallas. They blow a lead to Vegas in the first game, and yesterday they get shut out by the Avalanche 4-0. We were worried about their offense, their challenged offense, and they really, and their defense let them down in the first game, and in the second game they didn't score a goal. So I mean that you have to consider the fact that they're going to be the 4 seed, and if Edmonton comes back, they'd play Edmonton, but they're going to face somebody tough in the first round, and they may not be favored.
Well, I'll give you this, Russ. The one thing I'll disagree with you on, right now, if I'm a team in the division, my goal is to not face Carolina in the first round, given how good they look. And if seedings hold true, let's say Boston ends up with the 3rd seed, Carolina's number 6. They would have to face Carolina in the first round.
Boston's 4th right now.
What's that? No, but let's say Boston ends up, but the West they could do is 3rd. If they whoever ends up in the 3rd spot may end up facing, depending on how the seeding works out, Carolina in the first round, which is probably a matchup you really want to try to avoid.
I don't think the Bruins care about Carolina. I don't think they care about anybody.
I don't think they care about anybody.
They can beat any team in the East, and they know it.
Yeah,
that's the bottom line.
I don't know. I mean, I think
you don't know that they can.
No, I know they can, Russ, but I do think that hockey is a weird thing.
Well, that's why they're skating.
What's happening right now is the more they just listen. Here's what's coming down to, Russ. It's going to come down to the first game of the playoffs for them. Like if they can turn that switch on, fine. But if something goes wrong and they get a couple bad bounces and they fall and they lose to Carolina, then all the games that they're playing now are lumped into this whole big thing that becomes like the Bruins are that's when it gets inside their head.
That's fair. Let me ask you this question. If they went 0-6 in the preseason, the Bruins, what would you have said? Would you have been like, oh, this is going to be a horrible year for them?
Well, no, but they're not jumping into the
But this is preseason. That's what these games are.
Yeah,
they might be
seeding, but they are essentially preseason and lost their first 3 games in the regular season. Then you'd be like, okay.
These aren't regular season games. That's the point.
Yeah.
This is like a preseason tournament in NCAA hockey, and you get seeded as a result. And again, this team has so many veteran players. Like Krejci's barely playing. They know that.
I talked to somebody out in Colorado, and they said the thing they liked the best about this thing that they actually liked about it was there's no better way to practice the special teams than in actual games. And to them, get the special teams power play and penalty kill going, and we've seen it affecting other teams that are in the quarantine.
I'm just happy people are coming around and seeing this might be Colorado's year, because I picked them preseason to win, and I'm still picking them because to me they have the best skating team out there when you count the blue line and the forwards, and they have a good mix of youth and veterans and good centers. I think the goaltending is good enough, and that's why I think they can do it.
But the overriding point is that these teams are not, quote, selling out. They're not, because it would be stupid for them to. And it's like now you're in a position now where, you've got Dallas and Boston at 0-2. Tampa more than likely is going to be the number 1 seed. And now you're just battling for 2.
I do have to answer Dean Youngblood. Always excuses for Russ's favorite teams. If you think the Bruins are one of my favorite teams, you should have your head examined.
Yeah. That's not. No, it's not.
Okay.
So saying the Sabres are one of favorite teams.
So,
No.
so today the first game is Canucks Wild, series tied 1-1. Two games completely different.
Totally different games.
Yeah, game one, the Wild was shut the Canucks down. Game two, the Canucks were able to break out. I'm going to be curious whether Stalock is in net or they go to Dubnyk.
I don't know what they're going to do, but this looks like your classic Game 5 kind of series now because of the way these two teams play. And you know what? It's fine. I mean, I think it's entertaining hockey. I think, again, it's interesting because I don't think either of them would have made it if, it was a regular season and we didn't have the way the setup is. But at the end of the day, it's an entertaining series.
Yeah. No, it is. It is an entertaining series. And one last thing I wanted to put about I had this written down. I forgot to mention it was the thing about Boston Tampa yesterday when I was watching that game for a little bit. You're right. It's boring, but there was a stretch in that game where both teams actually someone got a hit was thrown and everybody sort of stepped up a little bit. And there was like a 5-minute stretch where you're like, yeah, you know what? These teams are better than the teams we're watching in the qualifiers. You saw it for a second. You saw it for a second that these teams are. They're better than these teams. So,
you know what the qualifier has showed me?
Yeah.
It has showed me that Tampa has more depth than any team in the East.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
All they have to do is play their game, and they'll be the number one seed, and nobody can do anything about it.
Yeah.
When they got third and fourth liners like Coleman and Barclay Goodrow, and then they paid a heavy price for them, but that they're really deep and really talented.
I know. Look, I know Flyers fans have hopes of this top seed, and they think they can beat Tampa. That is a tall order. You got to beat the Washington Capitals first. That still won't be an easy game.
Yeah.
So and there's the interesting thing about this. So Tampa's final game is on Sunday, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So by then, they will know that by getting the top seed, they can face Montreal, perhaps. So think about this for a second. So, if say Montreal takes out Pittsburgh, so Tampa suddenly the top seed for Tampa, who has owned Montreal. All right. I mean that becomes something that I think that does actually. It's either them or it could be maybe the Islanders, right, or something like that. So. If you finish second, you maybe get the Islanders, I think. So
maybe,
it depending on how this all plays out, of course. But I think that
the winner of the winner of Toronto Columbus would be the next lowest seed. They'd be 8 or 9.
Okay, they would be.
They would play the 2.
They would play the 2. Okay.
Yeah, the Islanders would play. The Islanders would play the 3, and I think that the
Carolina would be the highest, right?
4, yeah.
Right. So Carolina would play the 4. So yeah. So that could. I mean that's interesting how that could set up because there becomes a huge difference between playing Toronto or playing Montreal, say, or playing Columbus or playing Montreal for that final seed for Tampa on that final day, assuming that that game is Philly Tampa, right?
I got to tell you something.
I mean, that's Philly Tampa then, isn't it? Actually,
John Cooper will not throw a game to play another seed. It's not in him to do it. He won't do it.
Yeah, well, the Tampa has had trouble against them. What am I saying? Tampa has.
But they don't care. They won't. He's not that guy. He won't tell them to play a certain way so they can play a team that he thinks they can beat. He won't do it.
Yeah, but all I'll have to do, Russ, is put Curtis McElhinney in there, and it'll do it. That'll do it for him.
He won't do that either.
I know. But okay, so
and I do want to answer Funky. I think he's right in the sense that I don't think the Capitals care a ton in this round robin. But they still have a lot of firepower. And look, I think Carlson's still out too. So that's, but they're still a hard team to beat. Even when they're not caring, they still have a lot of guys that can play.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They can burn you.
I don't know a team that's going to look forward to playing the Capitals. Capitals and Flyers, Golden Knights and Blues are the round robin games tonight. And then at 8:00, we have Game 3 of Leafs Blue Jackets. Again, this is like Minnesota Vancouver. What team is going to show up for each side? If you're John Tortorella, you're not saying anything because again yesterday in the media, when asked the question from Aaron Portzline, he says, "I'm not going to talk about what I'm going to do," and they say, "We're just going to go out and play." And it was like all the
yeah, but you know what? I'll tell you where Torts sucks. So if you ask him that, he'll say, "I'm not going to talk about what I'm going to do." And then if you ask him about the other team, he's going to be like, "I don't talk about the other team." Right. And so it's like, you know what? Talk about something. Have a little respect.
George suggests like he should just read like the statute, the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody, he doesn't really. He just has to do his time. By the way, I have to change. I said something wrong.
But it's part of his job. It is.
Flyers and Tampa play on Saturday and for their final games. Okay, so
Right.
Montreal Pittsburgh also plays Saturday. I'm assuming that Montreal Pittsburgh, if they go to Game 5, will be
That'll be a late game.
that'll be the 8 o'clock game. So Philly and Tampa will have to play before that. So
Right.
they won't know what the outcome of that game
No.
is yet.
Right. Now a couple a couple changes lineup wise that are minor tweaks. Although for Columbus, it's a minor tweak. Nudavara is in for Dean Kukin, who was hit by Kyle Clifford in Game 2. But the Leafs situation, Muzzin's out. He's out for the series. Russ's favorite, Marty Marinson, is in. We don't know whether they're going to go with 7 defensemen, and Keefe was holding his cards close to the vest, whether he's going to go with 11 forwards and
Hey, Mike,
7.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I have to go up to take this, but
Go ahead.
this is something about the rumor chart. Check in later, guys. We'll talk more about the rumor chart later. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, we'll finish out the show. No problem. Okay. So I mean, whether they go 11-7, Russ, or 12-6, that's big because obviously the 7 would be Rasmus Sandin coming in. Anything to reduce the amount of ice time that Martin Marinson gets is a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see what he does. I don't know if they're going to do that, but they might. They might. And so you're right. We do have breaking news. So Lars Eller went back to Washington for the birth of his child. So now Travis Boyd's in there for the Capitals. And I imagine Eller will get back in a couple of days, but he's also going to have to quarantine a little. So they'll probably figure out the timeline so he can get back in time
for him. It's 4 days. Like apparently with Muzzin going to the hospital, he was able to come back in based on like where he was in the hospital and the precautions that they were taking, because he went right back into the bubble. With Eller, who's going to another city, he's flying, he's going, they don't know where he's been, what he's been exposed to. I believe he goes back and he's in isolation for 4 days, and he has to test negative for 4 straight days before he's able. But the thing is, he does that now, it's going to be at least 4 days before their first game.
Right. So I think it's going to work out. Carlson looks like he's a game time decision, but again, I don't know why they'd play him. I mean, unless they really care about their seeding, they're not going to play John Carlson.
I mean, Corinne, if a player's health is borderline, they're not going to play him in a round robin game.
Yeah, don't gamble with it. It's not worth it.
The other game tonight, the late game, and I'll try less to stay up for this one than last night because Chicago Edmonton was more entertaining. The Flames can finish off the low flying Jets. The injury plagued Jets. They're leading the series 2-1.
I find that really annoying, all those injuries, because I really was looking forward to that battle. And to see guys go down like this, it's just
yeah,
great.
I do have one more update. Brian Elliott's in today.
Okay, so again, that shows the lack.
They just want to do the goalie rotation.
Yeah.
They have to. Yep.
Yes. Yeah, I will bet you anything that Boston, now that they're 0-2 in the round robin, will play Halak in Game 3 because
considering Raff's broken finger, that would make sense.
Right, yeah. Exactly. So I mean, Russ, the excuses are there for Winnipeg. I mean, the injuries are there. It's key players. It's Scheifele. It's Laine. It's Perreault. I was impressed that they bounced back in Game 2. The thing is, the Flames, they may just have too much for them with them being so injury depleted.
I think so. There's another update because Joe Morello was asking about Jonathan Huberdeau. He is expected to play in Game 4, so Florida will have him. So 2 small things. I'm gonna have a little bit to say at the end, like how we have the pre-show. I'm gonna have a post-show, but because I think you'll like it. The Dallas Stars. I think we should be worried about the Dallas Stars because I know these games don't mean anything, but they
were still really trying, Dallas. When you watch them, Dallas, they're still really trying, unlike Boston. Right?
Yes.
And they're
not
failing.
getting any results.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's incredible how this team's personality and their mentality has changed over 3 years ago. If you remember, under Lindy Ruff, They were wide open, throttle open, off, like a Florida, like a Toronto, and they couldn't keep the puck out of their net. Now they're like the 95 Devils. Now they're playing shutdown. Yeah. And it's like, you've got Jamie Benn, Radulov, and Sagan. And then they spent big money on Corey Perry and on Pavelski, and they don't score any goals.
No, they better wake somebody up. I mean, because they have a big problem. All right, so here's my post show. I had ESPN on earlier, and they went into golf coverage, and I left it because there's just nothing on. Right, this is where you want noon hockey the worst. And I never thought I would say that in my life, because who the hell knew there could be noon hockey except the AHL when they had those weird games, those kids games once in a while. But
or the World Juniors.
Or the World Juniors. So at any rate, they're talking about whatever is the Players Championship for PGA, and they're following Tiger Woods around, who they kept showing a montage of missing putts of, and they're like blaming his new putter because he actually got a new putter. But then they said something astonishing. They were like, well, he's got a surgically repaired back, and the weather isn't great, and there's dampness, and we're worried about that. And they showed a chart where it's 55 degrees with, winds at 10 miles an hour. And I'm thinking, did anybody care when Sam Snead was like 65, 70 years old and, practically in a wheelchair out there golfing, or Jack Nicklaus after like his third back surgery was out there still golfing at the age of 50 something? No, nobody cared at all. But for Tiger Woods, they were willing to make any excuse they can to keep people watching. I've never seen anything like it.
That's why I despise Tiger Woods, because it's the Tiger Channel. If he picks his rear end, it's got coverage on ESPN. I hate it. It's boring as hell. That's why I root for everybody other than Tiger to win.
So you know how Canada feels about the coverage of the Maple Leafs.
Hey, yeah, but the problem is half of Canada's population is in the GTA, so no.
We seem to have conflicting views to end the show. That's fine.
One little update here from Elliot Friedman. Oli Levy and Zach McEwen are in the warm-up for Vancouver for Game 3. I can't remember who it was, but one of the Vancouver forward. Oh, Michael Furland. Michael Furland is outside the bubble. I think Brian Burke was saying he hinted at maybe it was concussion issues. Okay, which he's had throughout.
Yeah, he's had a history of that.
Man, I knew that was a bad signing, but this is really a bad signing. I'm happy if Joe Levy gets in there, because I felt like, he got dumped on with the whole video game gate and everything else, but the kid can play, and if he actually can show that he could play here, this could really help the Canucks. So I think that's good. McEwen, I really like. McEwen plays hard. He plays down low. He's got a good shot. Mm-hmm. And like I said, he's just a heavy game. And you know what? Vancouver needs more of that. So I think that's good move by Travis Green if he does it.
Well, just in preparation for us talking about the rumor chart tomorrow, one of the things, Levy was a 5th overall pick, and he's had injury issues. And obviously these, the supposed video game issues, but he's a top 5 pick, and he is a really good young player. I mean, if he finds himself, that's a big thing for the Canucks.
It is.
The Canucks, you've got Chris Tanev, who played, I think he's been playing mostly with Hughes as the stay-at-home guy.
Yeah.
He's making $4.5 million. Unless he's prepared to take less, I think they're going to walk away from him. I don't think they're going to spend the money, because they got to sign Hughes. They got to sign Pettersson. And if Levy can prove that he's
that's the thing. Yeah, you're right. Levy could patch that hole.
Right, exactly. And on an entry level deal for
Tremankin if he ever comes back.
Yeah, but he already signed with the KHL again next year. So.
Oh yeah, that's right. So it's a couple of years now.
Yep. All right, Corinne, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Corinne.
Appreciate it.
It's fun.
For the departed Jan Levine, for the departed Eklund, and for Russ Cohen, who's here, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just